I'm often asked about my ability to execute so many things at such a high level. Having been a full-time mom and a full-time career professional and going to school full-time and putting my own kids into college at the same time while running also a business, that's a lot of things to accomplish at the same time. And the way that I am able to do that is by planning and building actionable steps so that I know what to do specifically down to each day. And this is a window into how I do that. This is just my methodology and what works for me. It's my system, and it may not work for you, but I get asked all the time, so I thought I would share. I feel that in order to live a life, a successful life, you need to first decide on the 8 areas of your life that you want to focus on. I will reveal mine a little bit later on in the presentation. And then you need to brain dump. I think it's critical that you use a pen and a paper. This has to be old school. It's all part of the commitment process and attaching your brain and your mind to what you want to accomplish. You can't just think it and it magically happen. You have to actually physically go through the act. You need to take a pen and a paper and you need to brain dump each of these areas that you have decided on, and then give them each 3 to 4 categories. And then after that, you need to do an additional brain dump within those categories to create the action items to make the main items a reality. And then from doing that, you will be able to develop in those items into actionable and executable items. And then finally, you're able to implement them into your calendar, into your daily process to actually create a routine. So how this works on a basic level is you have me here in the center, and then off of that, I have each main category that I want to work on in my life. Those are the things that I feel are important and push me forward to have the best life that I can have and enjoy my life. So we have sections: home, health, wealth, family, friends, spiritual, business, and dreams. Dreams, of course, to me is a major category. A lot of people don't see that as a category. I think it's an essential part to having a happy life. So what happens here is I take each of these main categories and I sort of brain dump. Each one of those categories has a subcategory of what I need to focus on within those groups. So for example, in my home category, I need to focus on the physical environment of the home and the emotional environment of the home. In health, I need to focus on the physical, the mental, and the emotional. Now, several of these categories will have the same exact subcategories. So wealth has also the same thing. There's emotional aspects that I need to deal with to maintain wealth or achieve wealth, physical aspects that I need to deal with, and mental aspects that I need to deal with. Then in each category, I follow the same process. So you can see when we move around to family, that becomes a little bit different. It's about relationships, connectedness, time, and the emotional investment. Friends is very similar to family. Spiritual becomes different. That to me is about being kind, implementing kindness, implementing gratitude, dedicating time, being devoted to it, and having spiritual growth. Within business, it's a little bit different. We have growth, stability, credibility, right? Being in business, you need to build your credibility, and that helps to have success in that category. I also believe in planning, so there needs to be a 1-year, a 3-year, a 5-year. Sometimes I even take this farther out into the 10 or 15 year. Now, within each of these categories, also in dreams, we have to plan, right? We have to actually be able to say, these are my dreams. Then we have to visualize those dreams. So if you have a dream to take a trip to Ireland, you have to actually visualize yourself being on that trip to Ireland. And then you have to build a plan around how you're going to get there to accomplish that dream. And I think you have to acknowledge the dream. So for me, here's the steps. You first acknowledge that you have a dream. In other words, you think, oh, I want to accomplish this. That's a dream. And then you visualize that dream, and then you make a plan to make it happen. Once we've accomplished the main dump for the larger categories in your life, or in this case in my life, I move on into breaking that down. So what we're seeing here now is one of the main categories, and this one I chose here is health. And you have 3 categories that we broke down on the previous one. We have the physical, the mental, and the emotional. And now what I do is I break that down into the next subset. So in other words, in order for me to have the health that I want to have in the physical category of that, I need to do what to make that happen. To me, that breaks down to my diet, my exercise, my sleep, and my routine. So now I break down the diet into how do I achieve the diet that I want. In this case, it's about fasting, incorporating more vegetables, portion control, my water intake, and having a routine. In order to have the exercise that I want to maintain the physical success that I want, I need to implement 30-day challenges. That's something that I like to do because I get bored very quickly. So I do a 30-day challenge and then I move on to a different 30-day challenge. I like to walk, do weights. Of course, routine is important, and for me, it's really important to have a mix-it-up category because I get bored very quickly, and I also feel like I like to walk outside every day, and of course, in the winter, we have weather and things of that nature, so there has to be that mix-it-up element so that you don't break your routine or your habit. The next category would be sleep. Of course, routine is critical there. My goal is 7 hours a day. I want to be in bed by 10. I want to be up by 5. And I want no blue screen before bed, 2 hours, and 2 hours after I wake up. That's a critical piece, and I substitute that with reading in the evening, and in the morning it's meditation and planning. And then the last section for my physical success for the year would be the routine part. Believe it or not, I have a lot of difficulty with routine. I'm great at planning and building it out, and most people that know me would say, "What are you talking about? You're fantastic with routine." Well, maybe this is some of my own critical, maybe I'm a little too difficult on myself and looking for that perfect day every day, but anyway, that's my own mental part there. So routine is obviously you have to commit to your routine. You have to plan your routine. You have to have forgiveness about your routine. You have to keep trying, and you have to use a life system. And to me, this whole process is my life system. So that's an example of that. And then for the second subcategory of health is the mental part, right? So just like I broke it down here for the physical part, I would do the same process for the mental, and then the same thing for the emotional. And we see here that under mental, I have routine. You will see routine as a constant theme on everything because I think routine is key to everything. You have self-care. In other words, to have mental health and have success with that, you need to have good self-care. Meditation, I think, is important in there. Relationships are important to the mental health. That could be your family, your friends, your spouse. And plans, right? So you need to have plans in place to make sure you have good mental health. And personal growth. I think personal growth is huge in the mental space of your success to your health. And for me, personal growth, this will break down and include things like reading and learning and things of that nature. And then over on the emotional side, we do the same thing. We have the subcategories, which are forgiveness, loving, caring, and acceptance. And then I break those down, and we have how do we implement the forgiveness? Well, with friends, with strangers, we have to be able to forgive strangers. Myself, I have to be able to forgive myself, my family. I have to acknowledge, this is a big part of forgiveness. You have to acknowledge that there's something that you need to forgive someone for. And I think that's a big overlooked area. And I think this is a daily process, forgiveness, and I think journaling is critical into this forgiveness piece. And as part of my morning routine in the morning, that 2 hours of time that I don't allow blue screen is when I would do some journaling, and that's where I do gratitude and forgiveness and things of that nature. And then loving, we have, you have to practice being loving. I think it requires attention. It requires, you have to set the intention. You have to be purposeful about it, intentional about it, and you have to communicate it. So those are the areas that I want to work on in my loving category under my emotional health to have success and live the best life that I want to live. And then the next section is caring. You have to give to be, you have to give care. You have to show care. You have to be supportive. That shows caring. You have to be present in the moment. Those are the areas that I want to work on in the caring section of my emotional health to success. And then acceptance, self-love, no judgment, supportive, open, and willingness. Those are the categories that I will need to focus on in acceptance to have emotional health success. So I think you can begin to see the pattern here. We decided what we wanted to have. First was success and the areas that you needed to focus on for that. We then take those areas and break those down into the category. And then within those categories, I have subcategories. Within the subcategories, we have the specific actionable items that you need to do to accomplish those goals. Then after I've taken each section and broken it down again, we have the subcategories and the specific elements. So in my health section under the physical category, I have 4 key areas, and they were diet, exercise, sleep, and routine. So I'm going to use that piece as an example. So under the health, the physical section, I have diet. Under diet, I wanted to accomplish that by fasting, increasing veggie intake, portion control, water, and routine. I'm now writing down the actual steps per day to make sure that I accomplish that goal to stay within the diet section. So I think if you can really look at what's happening here, I set intention of what I wanted to have happen to achieve the success in this category of my life. And here's how I break it down, all the way down to the finite details. So in other words, in order for me to have success in health in the physical aspect under the diet, exercise, sleep, and routine, these are the things that I will need to do. I will need to have daily fasting. I'm going to do that with a 14 to 16 hour window. So that means I'm going to have food from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. So see right there, in order for me to achieve what I said that I wanted to have, I'm creating the actual step to do that. That's the key. So in order to take in more vegetables, how am I going to do it? It's one thing to say, I want to increase my vegetable intake, but then how are you going to do that every day? It will get lost if you don't have an actionable item. So for me, that actionable item is to include 2 or more vegetables every meal and to have one meal that's all veggies. Portion control. How am I going to actually do that? Well, I have been working on that for the past few years and have had great success, and I'm going to continue to do that. And I do that with using a specific plate size and a specific bowl size. And this is my guide, and it helps me to maintain that. And then the other way I control the proportions is with no snacking. Water intake. Okay, great. Everyone always says they want to increase their water intake, but how are you going to actually do that? The way that I actually was able to accomplish this was to institute some steps. The first one is when I get up, I have 20 ounces of water before I do anything else, before coffee, before anything else. So I'm starting my day off already accomplishing a third of my goal. It makes it easier to attain the rest of the day. And then I'd like to have 20 ounces in that before and lunchtime space, and then 20 ounces in the evening, which also helps me to control my fasting, because if I'm not eating past 3 o'clock, there's always an urge to have a snack. So instead of having a snack, I have that 20 ounces of water. It fills me up, it takes my mind off of it, and it helps me get through that hurdle to the rest of the day. And then I need to have a routine. So how do I establish the routine? I keep it oversimplified. I review it daily for practicality, right? If something's not working, we have to make an adjustment on the fly. So by having set out specific goals to achieve the success that I want within the diet portion of my physical plan, this is how I do it. I repeat this process for the exercise, the sleep, and every category on my main chart. Once I've completed all of the brain dumping exercises to establish the areas I want to focus on, the specific categories within those areas, and then the actionable items that are revealed in that process, I am then able to take those items and put them into my calendar and create a daily routine that I know is focusing on the specifics of my overall plan to achieve the successful life that I want to live. And so this is a screenshot of what it looks like once it gets into my calendar. Because I've put in those time blocks, I know that I'm following the system that I set up. I spend an entire day doing this, but it sets intention and it makes for huge success. This process changed my life and enabled me to do many, many things. I've also been able to adapt this system and apply it to my client work. I've applied it to when I was in college as a full-time mom and a full-time professional. I was able to apply this system to the classwork and the coursework, which was extremely powerful. That's actually how I learned how to modify and change this plan to almost any situation. But it's a very, very powerful tool, and it takes things from idea to an actionable daily step, which means that you actually accomplish what you want. It's life-changing.